Okay, this video I'm going to go through your homework, which is on pages 38 and 39, and start talking about the word problems following on page 40. So your homework was to solve these inequalities and to graph. To solve, we do nothing different than solve for x. But if we divide by a negative or multiply by a negative, I need to flip that alligator or the inequality. You could tell if you got to flip it by looking at the x right away or the variable and seeing if it's positive or negative, the number with it. If it's negative, you know you will flip it. So to solve these, I will show the solving quickly. This number that you get here is our key number on our number line when we graph it. We need to put an open circle because there's no little line. In the alligator, I do N for number, V for variable in alphabetical. And the alligator is eating the variable, so I'm going to draw my arrow to the right. On number 2, we started by saying, make sure you understand that there's a -1 in front of that variable. So when you solve, you're going to have to actually divide by a -1 because that number is negative. And what that does is flips the inequality. Gives me a -3 on my graph, an open circle. Now the inequality is eating the number, so it must go to the left. Number 3, no need to flip because we could see the number on the y is positive. And when we solve, our key number here is 4. On our graph, we're going to now use a filled in circle because of this little equal to. And the inequality is eating the variable, so it's going to go to the right. Number 4, same thing, I'm going to solve. Divide by 3 and you get 6. Close circle on the 6 because of the equals to. And this inequality is now eating the variable, so it's going to go to the right. Number 5, I'm going to divide by a -10, and I get a +2 here. But what's important to see is I must flip this inequality. Why? Because I divided by a negative. So +2 is my key number on the number line. Open circle. It is eating the number, so I'm going to go to the left. Number 6, I'm going to multiply by 2. Cancels. I don't have to flip because it's not a negative that I multiplied or divided by. Open circle on my number 2, eating the variable, so it's going to go to the right. In number 7, I first solved. No need to flip because this y here is positive. And the key number I get when I solve is a +2. Going to need a closed circle because of the equal sign, the little line. And the inequality is eating the variable, so it's going to go to the right. In number 8, I'm going to solve. Even though I get a negative number when I solve, there's no need to flip it because the number with the variable was positive, so I didn't multiply or divide. Open circle because there's no equal to, and line, the arrow is going to go to the right because it is eating the variable. Okay, now when we look at page 40, we start working with word problems, and you're going to recognize a lot of these, the setup is the exact same. You want to look at what it is that you are being asked for, that's your variable, and then you're going to, instead of using an equal sign, you're going to use a greater than or a less than. So I'm going to make a chart, and this is a chart I would copy down and study. When do I use the greater than or equal to symbols or the less than or equal to symbols? And there will always be a number, so let's pretend it's 500 that we're talking about. So some of the keywords, obviously greater than and less than are your obvious ones. Now, if the problem says you have so much money to spend, $500 to spend, or has it to spend, but not that you necessarily spent it all, then it's going to be less than or equal to. You could spend less, but you can't spend more. Now, if it says you spent, if I put a little line here, equals would be you spent it. You spent it all. Not that you have it to spend, but that you did spend it. But a lot of times, this is a very common one here. Has money to spend, very, very common. Another key word is at least. At least you could have more, but that's the minimum that you have to have. A few other keywords for greater than would be more than, not equal to, just more than. And then less than or equal to would be no more than. You could have it, but you can't have more than it. So you could have less than it. Sometimes it's going to say, what's the minimum amount of something? Well, minimum means you could have more. So minimum would be greater than or equal to. And then it may say, what's the maximum of something? So you can't have more, but you could have less. So maximum would be less than or equal to. And we may add to this list as we start looking at word problems, but it's a list to have that's very, very helpful if you know what words. Now, the ones with the blue asterisks next to them are the most common ones that aren't as obvious than just greater than or less than. So again, I may add to this list. I will export this list to Google Classroom so you have it to refer to as well. Okay, going back to word problems now. Oh, I already think I see one. At most. At most can be down here. And I would put a blue star next to that as well. At most can't be more, but could be less. So when I go back to our packet now, I'm going to start looking at word problems and how these change. The only thing that's going to change, but what's ever so critical, is the inequality. So if I look at number 1, it says a taxi driver charges a flat fee of $4 plus $6 per mile. The tip is included in the mileage rate. Orlando has only $22 to pay for the trip. What is the most amount of miles that you can ride? Don't get caught up on Orlando. They want miles. Miles is going to be M. What number is going with my miles is right here, the 6. So 6M plus is pretty obviously translated to a plus sign plus your 4. My total is 22, but the key word is has. Has is less than or equal to. Then when I solve, I'm going to subtract 4. You get 6M is less than or equal to 18. And divide by 6, and we get M is less than or equal to 3. What's important is to round properly on these. So less than or equal to 3 would give me 3. Number 2 has $80 to spend. What is the greatest number of DVDs? That is what we're looking for. She wants to buy as many DVDs as possible after buying a CD that costs $8 and the DVDs cost $18. So 18 is going to go with the D plus your CD, which is 8. I have $80 to spend. having it to spend is less than or equal to. When I solve, I get 18D is less than or equal to 72. And when I divide by 18, I get D is less than or equal to 4. So the greatest amount that she can buy would be 4. Number 3, Sharon's age is at most 3 times more than twice Kayla's age. She is 35, rate and 7 inequality. So I know Sharon, I need to find Kayla. So K is going to represent Kayla, and there she is. So 3 more than is a plus. Twice is 2 times Kayla age, 35. At most, when I go back to my chart here, at most is less than or equal to. Less than or equal to. And then we just solve it. You just got to know that chart for which inequality belongs. And I get K is less than or equal to 16. So 16 is the biggest that K can be. Number 4, on Saturday, Maya read at least 58. 5 fewer. Fewer means I'm going to subtract 3 times as many pages in her book as she did on Friday. On Saturday, she read at least 58 pages. What is the minimum number of pages, P? So that at least, don't mind the dog. 5 fewer is subtracting. 3 times the number of pages would be 3P, greater than or equal to 58. And you get 63 divided by 3 is 21. That is the minimum that it can be. You try number 5 and check your work. Where'd you get them?
When I left the swim meet today, I drove over on the sidewalk. Your father goes, I know what you're going to do. I reached out and just ripped them right off the side.